This story is a journey, a fascinating journey of Ephraim Woods. It's the story of a man born in Mississippi to sharecropper appearance, whose life journey took him from Mississippi to Olive Branch and then to Nashville in Tennessee. From there to Kansas City in Kansas and to the United States Air Force and finally to California, where he eventually earned a master's degree in social work from the University of California, Los Angeles. Ephraim then worked for the Los Angeles Probation Department. This story is told in Ephraim's own words, and it's a journey worth exploring. My name is Sylvester Jim Bowie. I conducted the interviews, and I hope, like I did, that you will learn of the amazing journey of Ephraim. His story is certainly one worth telling. Thanks, Ephraim, for sharing your story with the world. Let me use this opportunity, Ephraim, to welcome you and to thank you for participating in this. And so we just want to start with getting some background information about who you are. Tell us about your early years, your childhood, if you have siblings, all the way I know you served in the military, so you might want to talk about your military service and college. So go for it. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I was born in Mississippi. My folk were farmers, sharecroppers. They were in Mississippi until we moved into Olive Branch, Tennessee. And I recall being hit by a bird when I was about 5 years old for climbing a tree and looking in the nest, and the bird slapped me right up behind. I remember that one. In Germantown, Tennessee, moving to Memphis, Tennessee at age 5. Grew up there until I finished the 6th grade at Corn School in Memphis, Tennessee. I did a lot of weekends at W.C. Hanley Park on Bill Street. Bill Street. I frequent Bill Street, kept up with the serial chapters that was going on in the movies, the New Daisies and the Old Daisies and the Palace. Those are 3 movies on Bill Street. And from there, we moved to Kansas City, Kansas. I didn't tell you that I have a sister.
That's all right.
And she passed away just last the 16th of
July.
July. Thank you. We were family. And Lovey was my second mother. Whenever mom and dad left the house, she was in charge. Her big sword was, I'm going to tell, that got it, because I didn't want what dad had. In Germantown, he made corn liquor, and I didn't know much about it, but
is that like moonshine?
That's moonshine, right?
Okay.
And I didn't know, but I know once the high sheriff came, and the reason he came is because dad's cousin came for some liquor, and it wasn't ready to the point where they wanted to give it up, and they wouldn't give him any, and he told. The high sheriff came, and I could see my dad running across the hills when the high sheriff went over and busted up the still. But that was what they did for drinking themselves and for bootlegging some if they could. And that's what my dad and mom were, I say, sharecroppers. They were laborers. They worked. The one thing I learned from my parents were to work. And I started working a little hustle in the they call them cur markets, where on the weekends produce and all kinds of stuff. Stalls were filled with stuff. And you could go and help old ladies take their produce to their car, and you got 10 cents, 15 cents, 20 cents. That was my hustle for a while. I started making money when Hasten Fisher, like my sister, told me, he said, you could set pins. And he directed me to a bowling alley that had duck pins. And those were the little pins with the little rubber bands around, and they had a little ball. That was my first experience in the bowling alley. And I started setting pins. And you did them with your hand, you set them up and you set up on the rack and they throw. And that was in the 40s when the sailors would come in with their girlfriends and they could throw that ball down the alley as hard as they could throw it. Pow! And you had to protect yourself, if something came your way. But that was my first real kind of job, was setting pins.
How old were you then?
Probably about 11.
Okay.
I'm not sure, but somewhere in there. And they built a kingpin bowling alley right behind Colonial Bakery, Colonial Bakery had, when we moved to Memphis at Christmas time, they had a display of Santa Claus on their lawn. And the Santa Claus came down on the sled and go up, and the thing jumped to space. I spent so much time sitting there being amazed. This was my first kind of big city kind of stuff. It was amazing. And on top of Walgreens drugstore at Cleveland and Poplar, there was a Coca-Cola sign on the top, on top of the building. And it printed like it spelled Coca-Cola, flashed Coca-Cola. It did about 3 things that kept me out on the front porch just looking at it. I was transformed by electric lights and flashing things. I grew up in Memphis. I never heard of junior high until I got to Kansas City, Kansas. We moved to Kansas City, Kansas, and there was junior high, Northeast Junior High. And I had never heard of that in Memphis, junior high school.
That was
my
interesting.
First. Yep. Also, it was my first encounter with basketball. In Memphis, I had never seen a basketball. I had never seen a basketball court, whatever. And I came up on I used to know that school name. Anyway, it was a middle school, and they had basketball courts outside. I had never seen that. I sat there, watched the guys play 3-on-3. And when I got on that court and got that ball in my hand, I could not push it to the goal. I thought I could do it. It just looked so easy. But you have to learn how to do that. And it really took some time. And I spent some time learning how to play basketball. I sweat a lot out. I liked that game. I did. My experience in Kansas came, father and mother were separating. I didn't tell you about why we left Memphis, Tennessee. John Bailey and Dad were buddies. John Bailey had a truck, and he and Dad did hauling, moving. They did work together. Somehow, John Bailey and Mama got involved, and Dad found out, and he shot John Bailey. He hit him in the leg, and I don't know. Anyway, he shot, and he ran off to Kansas, and that's how we got to Kansas City, Kansas. We stayed with Mom until Dad got situated, and Mom took us to Kansas City, Kansas. And she stayed there probably, I don't know, maybe 4 weeks, I don't know, a month more. And when I came home from that basketball, something like that, Dad said, "Your mom is gone." And I said, "I don't care." And he said, because I knew they were, not getting along. And I know John Bailey was involved because my dad shot him, you know what I mean, and whatever. And I said, I don't care, when he told me she was gone. And I remember what Dad said. He said, I don't care, I ain't got no home. I didn't know why he said it, but that's what he said. I don't care, I ain't got no home. I never forgotten it. Uh, I like one of the things I think made me feel really involved in Kansas City, Kansas. Across the street, when we moved down to 107 Quindera, across the street was Wilbur Hunt, and Wilbur, his other name was Wilbur Jones. But Wilbur was a hustler. He get a little sickle, and we go and cut weeds in people's backyards and whatever. But he was his buddy. He lived over there, and he moved over here, and his buddy started throwing papers for Mr. Prim. Mr. Prim had a large section, black section, for the Kansas City Star. The Kansas City Star came 13 times a week, 2 times a day, once on Sunday. I hooked up, got a route. Wilbur had a route. I worked that route. When the worker who waited for the papers to come, for the truck to bring the papers in the morning and in the evening, the worker drove Mr. Prim's 39 Chevy. He had the back seat was out, and he carried and spotted the papers where the carriers wouldn't have to try to carry them all at once. He spotted them for Mr. Prim. After I worked there a while, taught me how to drive when I was about 14. Took me uptown, got me a permit to drive, and I started driving a car when I was about four. I was clearly 15, I think, when I got my first license. But I learned to drive a car. Mr. Prim, I never missed a day in 5 years working with the Kansas City Star. I worked 5 years for Mr. Prim, and I never missed a day. I never had a sick day. I never had any reason. Prim liked me. My dad said, Mr. Prim thinks he's your dad. Mr. Prim thought he liked me enough where his wife didn't like me. She know he tried to treat me like son in a way. They had an adopted daughter. She was in my particular class. She was in the same grade I'm in. His name was Bonnie Prim. Her name was Bonnie Jean Prim. Anyway, I didn't relate to her. They were on a different level economically and whatever. Mr. Prim left every summer and went to Minnesota fishing. He and Dr. Dyer and Dr. So-and-so and they went and his wife was in charge when he went away. And she had to relate to me in a business way. And I think she was always glad when he returned. Well, I don't know. We didn't fit. We just didn't fit. You know what I mean? We had to deal with one another, and we had to deal with one another, but we didn't really fit. I never tried to play basketball and whatever. I always worked. I always had a job. I had something to do after school. I like PE. I like physical ed, but physical ed and shops were my main things at school. I did my best there. When
What did you do in shop? I take it you did different trades.
I did woodwork. I
Mm-hmm.
made a whatnot shelf, within the corner in the
Mm-hmm.
room. I made a magazine rack sitting on the floor that sits on the floor. Magazine rack had 2 sides, all in the house. All were used in the house. I wonder sometimes what happened to those, because they were heavy wood. It was heavy when you picked it up. It had been shellacked and whatever. And I like running the machines. My dad and my mom they did not read or write. And I did not know that until I was an adult. They had a Bible and a almanac. I don't know if you know what an almanac is, but
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The McDonald's almanac
yep,
that
yep,
tell you
yep.
about crops and that kind of stuff.
Uh,
When to plant.
it certainly has teas and stuff you can take to cure this and cure that,
Right. Right.
And the Watson man came by, you know what I mean? The Watson man. He had a suitcase. He had a suitcase, but he had all kind of little medicines in there for different kind of stuff, ailments.
Let me
That's
ask you something here, Ephraim. Did you know your grandparents on either side, maternal or paternal? And were they involved in your life?
my dad's father, Big Daddy, didn't like to be called Grandpa. He didn't want that kind of stuff. He had land. He had acres in Mississippi. He may have his picture by, I don't know about Friday for the next Zoom, but I have a picture of him. Brown, big. He had money and he had land. My dad praised him to the highest. Eve Woods had a reputation in Miller and Olive Branch, Mississippi. People knew Eve Woods. He
Mm.
drove. I never seen him in a car driving. I never seen him in it with his horse and buggy. But according to my dad, he was a fancy horse, fancy buggy man. And my dad had about 4 brothers. None of them had the same mama. Dad's mom was Carrie. I didn't see her very often. She was very quiet. She felt Indian. She felt like she had some Indian in her. She just had that kind of stillness. My mother's dad had some Indian in him. He was hard to relate to. He wasn't really related to. But Grandpa Bruce was a quiet man and didn't know much about him. Just didn't. Uncle Buck, his brother, lost his life going into the house to get where he had hidden his money. He went in to get it and lost his life. Uncle Buck, I really liked him. He was a spirited guy. He liked being the uncle. He liked being with youngsters or whatever.
Mm.
Mm. But
So when you say he lost his life, did somebody attack him because they knew he had the money?
no, he went in and the fire got him. I don't know how or what.
Oh, there was a fire and he went in to try and retrieve the money.
He went back and he went in there to go get his money. That's the
Oh,
last I heard of Uncle Buck. Like
wow.
I say, I liked the man. I did. He was spirited. He was spirited.
So so you are in Kansas City. Is that where you finish high school?
Yes. Sumner High. Dear old Sumner High.
And so what made you decide to go in the military?
Well, I would say my future brother-in-law, which I had no idea, I didn't really like the dude. He went in the Air Force, and well, first of all, we both ended up out of high school, going down in the bottoms, they call it, packing houses where the cattle, all those armors packing house and uh, all the rest of them. Bazer went there. I went there. I went to Armors. He went to Armors too. My dad was in Armors, packing house, and I got a job in the lard refinery, which was probably the best place in the whole thing to work with. Plus, there were women, and which meant all the guys at lunchtime would come around, and over in the lard refinery was full of guys checking out some ladies, or some of them had relationships been going on for years. Been going on. I worked a year. I worked a year, and Bowser again. He went in the Air Force, I said, and he came out in that blue dressed blue with the tie, handsome looking dude, man. I looked at that. I wanted to go in the Air Force. I wanted to go, and I did. In
Mm.
52, I graduated in 51, and I worked a year in the packing house where my dad worked. That was all I wanted out of school, was to just finish. I wanted the diploma for some reason, and I wanted to work where my dad was working, and that's what I did. And then Liza went into this Air Force. I saw him. I joined the Air Force. The Air Force changed my life around about who I was as a person. I never, like I said, I shot for my dad's, what they were doing, working, or whatever. And the Air Force, guys like me. I don't know. I could talk my, I don't know. I could tell guys stuff that somehow it made sense. And they came to my bunk and they sit around my bunk. Guys brought their letters to and read the letters and told me, asked me, and I gave them my advice. It was something. It was something. And there was a redhead dude who didn't like it. Woody, you think you so and so and so and so? You're there every evening. He was there arguing, and he was to be over there. And I was made first squad leader, so I had a position. I never did KP in basic training. When my squadron had KP, we went swimming. The squad leaders went swimming. When the other guys, the first squad leader, the squad leaders and the right guide went swimming when the other guys went to KP. I never did KP. I worked KP in the Air Force for the first time. I got paid for it. Some guys didn't want to work it, and I replaced them. I hustled that in Alaska. I spent 2 years, almost 22 and a half months or so in Alaska. I worked KP for guys who didn't want to work KP on the weekends.
What's
$20.
KP? What's KP?
Kitchen police, they call it.
Okay. Okay.
And I do pots and pans. To me, that was the best one. You didn't have to listen to anybody telling you whatever. You saw what you had to do. And I didn't mind sitting there and scrubbing out those pots and washing them out. So I hustled in the service. I had a good time in that
How long did you serve?
4 years. I went in. I can tell you. I went in 52 and I got out in 56. So I was in doing some conflict. I was assigned to Sioux City, Iowa, the 18th Fighter Squadron. I went there shortly a year after I was in the Air Force. I was in Sioux City, Iowa. I had 2 stripes. I got one out of basic training. They sent me to a aircraft and engine A&E 6-month school in Texas. Wichita Falls, Texas, and A&E mechanic. And from there, this is one of the things I was sorry about. There were 3 of us, and we said we were going to go to Europe for three years. And when I got in there to sign that thing, 3 years sound a whole lot too long. Ooh-wee. And I put Chanute Air Force Base, and that's what I got. I told the guys a lie. I said, they put me in. Did that.
So where's that Air Force base located?
In Illinois.
Okay.
So it's very close to Champaign, the University of Illinois. One of the only racial things that ever happened to me in the service up front. The guy said to me, "Woody, come on, let's go bowling." And I had grown up in the bowling alleys, and I could throw a hook. So I said, "Oh yeah, sure." So we went to the bowling alley, and we got in there. The guy said, when I got up there, he said, "Sorry, sir." I said, "What?" He said, "Sorry." He said, "I can't rent you any shoes." And guys had already been, somebody had already gotten their shoes. I said, what? He said, I'm sorry. That's just the management. And it's the so-and-so or whatever. It sounded like he had said it before, I mean, he knew his stuff. And the guys turned back the shoes and whatever. We left. I was really surprised because I thought I was up north, you know. That was one of my first time thinking it ain't what they say it is up here. That's what happened.
So let me ask you this question, then we'll kind of pull out. How do you introduce yourself to future generation as to who you are? What would your introduction be if, let's just say, you're looking straight in the camera now and you want them to know who Ephraim Woods is? Give me a descriptor how you'd introduce yourself.
Well, I really never thought of that.
How do you want to be remembered is kind of what I'm asking you. You know, the essence of who you are. You know your story, the full story.
Well, I came to California to work, and that was I was going to go back to KU to my junior year. Yeah. And I was not a college thinker. I was not college. Matter of fact, and I like to put Donald Kitchen a couple of things to me. And when I came out of the Air Force and decided and was going back to the Armor's Packing House, I had 5 years seniority. I'm getting 2 weeks vacation. I'm up to my dad that almost. He had about 3 weeks still, maybe a month. But anyway, here I am.
So you were ready to go back to the packing house. Like, so what you mentioned KU, is that Kansas University?
Kansas University.
Yeah, so what was your, and we're getting past the introduction, we'll come back to it.
Right.
But what was your motivation to go to university, especially since you were so set on going back to the packing house? You
Yeah.
had seniority. What made you
I
decide
went
to
back to the
university?
packing house. I went back,
Oh, you
started,
did?
sit down, and again, having a beer with Donald Kitchen. Donald Kitchen said, "What you doing?" I said, "I'm back at the, I'm got 2 weeks of vacation and blah." He said, why don't you go to school?" I said, "What?" He said, "Why don't you go to school?" I said, "What do you mean, go to college?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Man, you looked at my grades. You looked thought about what I did." And I said, "No, you don't, I'm not." He said, "No, they have to let you in." I said, "What?" Nobody ever made it that clear to me. They have to let you in. He said, "On probation." I had never heard that word before. Probation. They have to let you in. I had never heard have to. I heard, "Yeah, you can go." It didn't make any sense to me about the college. This did. He said, they have to pay you. They have to do about it. He said, "You'll get the," and he had already connected with KU. So I did. They accepted me, and I became a student. Prerequisites. Prerequisites. I did that word knock me out. What is it? Now, if I tell you this, and I, when I was in the service, writing back to who I call my girlfriend, Carlene Morgan, I could not form a paragraph. I could not form a paragraph. My statement to anybody I wrote, I said, "How goes the game of life with you today?" That was my beginning, and the rest of it were just little statements about this, that. I could not form a paragraph. Nobody ever tried to teach me how to do English at all, except now I knew subject predicate, the verb, and
Right.
how
You
to
know how to make
they
things
call it.
agree.
I could ace parts of speech and whatever. I was good at that. And math was my best subject. I liked
Uh,
math. Math, I trigonometry, whatever, geometry, whatever, until I got to calculus. And to me, calculus made no sense. It began to tell me how to put numbers on words. You know what I mean? And I kept, that ain't what I'm going to do. I don't want to put no numbers on words. Numbers I want to keep messing with. You know what I mean? I gave it up. Calculus just didn't make any sense. Just, nah, that's crazy.
So how long did you stay at KU and how did you do?
Well, in English, and now because I was aircraft electrician in the Air Force, I said I was going to be an electrical engineer, and that's what I kind of worked in my head that I could laugh and say we were pimping on the government. You know what I mean? Because I had no real ambitions in the university. I had reasons as a GI with that privilege to go to school and get paid and whatever. I think what we get $26 a week. So I don't know, some they had a little.
Yeah, so like I'd ask you, how did you do in your 2
Oh,
years?
thank you.
Right.
English was my worst thing. First Englishman said to me, well, he said after the next, he told me, he said, you ought to do this again. English 1A, English 1A, you ought to do it again, but not with me. I said, okay, and I did. I did it again. With him, I did a thing. I used to come home Kansas City from school on a Friday, and Friday night was fight night. And Grandpa and his buddy, Mr. Bailey, something like that, they would be sitting in the living room with a half pint sitting in between them, getting ready for the fight. And who you got this week? Black Richards. Oh no, you had Black Richards last week. They'd go through that thing, man, arguing about who had Black Richards and whatever. They work it out. They always did. But I wrote it up. My first English instructor there, Dr. So he wanted to put it in the journal. And I didn't want to expose that didn't sound like college stuff to me. I didn't want to do it. I had no ego. I thought the other black kids on the campus would be laughing at me, you know what I mean, for putting something like that in it. And yeah, later I saw that I didn't have an ego. I had nothing to make me feel like I was college anyway. That's
Right.
that's what didn't happen. That happened after I got married, and whatever. I got feeling like I was. I left City College on the Dean's Honor Roll. I aced biology. I was gonna preach. I don't know how I got into all of this though, but at one time I was gonna be. I wanted to save the world, straighten it out.
Okay. Now I say you were thinking of becoming a preacher?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. And at City College, one of the professors walking out to the parking lot asked me and said, well, what you gonna do? I said, I'm gonna become a minister. I'm gonna change the way some people are looking at this thing. He said, what do you think? What denomination? I said, not a Baptist and not Methodist. No. He said, what you gonna do? I said, I don't know, but I'm looking for something that's more open and I'm not sure. The year before, a few of us went to Minneapolis, and the railroads like hiring students because the student is going back to school in September, and in other words, the heavy load is over and they're back to normal. So the student fits in. I came to California to do the same thing I did in Minnesota. Did work. But what I ran into was Bizer, this friend of mine, the one that did the examples of going to school, going to Air Force and all. I'm
So
sorry.
so so what was his encouragement? So you were coming out to work, but what happened?
My mother was out here already, helping Lover deal with separating from Bizer. So when I got here, I didn't know Mother was here. I stayed because Mother said, oh, Lovey's not going to be able to make it. She's pregnant, almost ready to deliver, and she's going to need some help to keep. Well, she talked me into, you need to stay here. And I did. And that was not my intent. I was going to go back for my junior year at KU. Mother talked me into staying, and I'm glad I did. We
Mm.
became family. We saw what we could do. Keeping, we went to the market, counted up. When we got to the cashier, we were very close to what the cashier rang it up. That's how we began to squeeze, and we worked at it and saw that we were gaining ground and whatever. The first job I got after I decided to stay was demolition. I went out with the brothers uh, where they had knocked down brick, stone, stuff, knocked it down. And we was shoveling and throwing it up in the truck and whatever. And that stuff got up in my nose and opened up my sinus. I had never felt this before in my life. Ah, I never went back on that job. I said,
Mm.
no, I won't do that. Mm-mm. I didn't know I had that, whatever it was.
So how did you work? How did you work your way back to school?
I didn't until I married. Lovey and I and mother worked, bought a house, and that's what I was working to station. And in that time that we did this, I joined the church and I married. I met Barbara and I married. It was I spent some good years, I think,
Mm.
until I ran into the idea that I didn't want to be a Christian any longer. And I ran into Dr. Ben and some others, and we went into African cave. And I looked at what they say was the diabolical without sex. Say they had a pregnancy without sex, uh,
Mm.
and that was kind of on the wall, an indication. And that's where Christianity got its beginning. Hmm. I Some of my best years, feeling good, was Christianity. Christianity, man, lifted me into a part where I made me important. I began to feel this is your purpose, is to know you. That's what you, just pay attention. Just pay attention.
So back to that question that I'd ask you then. If you were to be introducing yourself in a kind of summary way, how do you describe who Ephraim is?
I think I like people, all kind. Not that
Mm-hmm.
I buddy around with all kind, but I see you can't have it all one way. It got to have a mixture in there. I like folk. I one of the easiest ways for me to spend some time is uh, to spend some time with somebody interesting.
Just be with folks, eh?
So,
Let me ask you then, thinking of the section two early influences, who are the people and the places and the moments that have shaped the person that you have become? So, who are the people, the places, and the moments that really shaped your life for the person you became?
J. Krishnamurti. Ever heard of the name? Krishnamurti. When on the beach, one of the beach cities there, you look up, and at the end of the street, there's a library. I went there, and as I walked in the door, I looked over on the far wall, and the sun was shining and glittering, sparkling like off a book. And it's kind of a little line going in slow, and I kept looking, and when I got in, I just went straight to that book. I got a minute.
Were you looking for the book?
Taking too long to
Oh,
find.
so you were saying we're talking about the people, places, and moments that shaped you, and you were talking about looking at this book.
That's how I met J. Krishnamurti.
Mm-hmm. And what was his
He
influence on you?
Hmm?
How did he influence you?
Just turning me into here. He's saying, as long as you out there, you can't go find, I think, what you're looking for. You can't find it because that just keeps fluctuating and changing and wondering, whatever. In here, you can trust what you find more than that. Anyway, uh, he turned me into looking at self
Mm.
and thinking. I I began to give myself more more praise for being me and and
Ah.
and liking to be me and liking to
Hmm.
be me. I didn't know how hard when I wanted to be like Buck Jones and Tim McCord and all of any of them that was doing. I wanted to be like that. And somebody's telling me that's not where it's at. It's, and I began to hear it that, hey, look at yourself.
Right.
Look.
You can be comfortable with yourself.
Yes.
So, what were some of the biggest turning points or crossroads in your life? And how did you change direction?
Yeah, changing directions is the big swill pill to swallow. But once I want to do it, once I want to putting stuff in my daily life is the thing that takes the work. It takes the work to put it in my daily life.
Mm-hmm.
To I don't know. I have to feel special. I have to put me in a high grade. It's the only way I think to be to be lifted is to see myself as important, not to anybody in particular, but
Mm-hmm.
important and always important.
So, how did you decide? And you say you were married by then. How did you decide on going to school here in California? And where did you go?
Well, I was at KU for in a engineering towards an engineering degree, electrical engineering. I married, and I didn't back into school until I married. And for some reason, I was working post office, and I had about five years or so there now. Then, and I don't know. I was encouraged. Barbara encouraged me to go night school, so I did. I hooked up. Matter of fact, the guys, when I finally got an AA degree out of the night school, out of uh, city college, uh, the guys, when I left the post office, the guys said, "You'll be back." Yeah, they said, "You'll be back."
So after you got your AA, then what happened? Especially
Then
since you were at the
I
post office.
dropped all that I had done at KU. I, I,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't put that in my transcript or whatever anymore. I just said I started at City College, and I worked for the AA degree. I left there on the Dean's Honor Roll, and I went to Cal State. Um, I did Cal State and got my BA degree from Cal State.
Mm-hmm. You got your BA in what was your major?
Uh, Sociology
Okay.
with the social work option. They call it
Minor, social work minor.
something. They call it a social work option or something.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And Dr. Adler at Cal State, he liked it. He liked what he said to me, and he may have said this to other students. He said, "Ephraim, I'm going to write you the best letter of that I have written to strong for." I don't know how he said it, but I'm going to write you the best letter that I can write for a student. He said to me, "I don't like social workers. They meddle in people's lives." He said, "But Ephraim, I'm going to write you one of the best letters I've ever written to a student." I used to go to Adler's house on Tuesday nights, and he had students over, and I was doing the conflicts, and they would discuss the war and the war. I didn't open my mouth. I did not open my mouth, but I listened. because I didn't hear anything else. I wasn't a news person, never was. Um, I try to keep up with some stuff, and for a while, the news got
You weren't a news person. I mean,
no,
it
not a
sounds
news.
obvious.
Uh,
So you where did you get your MSW?
UCLA.
So who are some of did you meet Joe at UCLA?
Yeah, you could say that. We met as first year students. We met with the second year students, and that's where I met Joe.
So Joe was your senior?
He was my senior.
Yeah, was he in the second year group or
No,
the
no, he was the first year. He was with me.
so both of you were first years.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. We then started driving to school together. You know what I mean?
Mm.
I picked him up. He picked me up. You know what I mean?
So you also met John Coney.
I did. John Coney. I hadn't heard that name in a long time.
Yeah, John Coney was one of my professors.
Really?
Yeah, at Sacramento.
No,
He taught statistics and research.
I don't know what that means, but
Yeah, and he went to Brandeis for his doctorate after
oh, oh.
UCLA.
And do you know where he is now? I'm
Uh,
glad. I'm glad.
yeah, no.
Whoa.
No, I didn't hear of John Conedine. He was up in Sacramento, and
Oh, hmm. All
but
right.
I haven't heard anything about John in a while. Let me ask you then. So you mentioned the book as kind of major. Like, what else? Can you think of any coaches or any community leaders or any elders who influenced you? For example, like, how did you decide that you wanted to be a social worker?
It kind of fell in my lap when I finally realized that I wasn't going to preach. That's how it happened. Yeah, when I stopped reaching to the preacher, when I stopped reaching for that, it fell. It, it was like that thing said in social work option. And it was like that's the only thing left right there on the table. You know what I mean? You might as well take it. And I did.
Hmm.
Didn't start off with it. Didn't start off knowing what social work didn't even wasn't something I even thought about. Not in that in a social work sense. No.
Right. So back to the question then, just to like this section 3 here about turning points. What are some of the biggest crossroads or turning point that you have had that you experienced in your working life?
When I was placed uh, at Dorothy Kirby Center, it was all girls at the time. I thought I had hit the jackpot as far as having a clientele that I felt really good, comfortable working with. Felt like they wanted to do something, you know, in group and whatever. When
Right.
you're working with them. When I got the position, yeah, at Dorothy Kirby and got in Garnet Cottage, I knew I had to reach the place where I wanted to be, that I wanted to work. I came to work at 10 o'clock and I stayed till 6. And I got up morning, did my stretching and whatever before work, and did my headstand, did whatever I needed. And I went to work with a smile for some time. I
Mm.
liked going to work. And people at Dorothy Kirby knew I liked doing what I was doing. I wasn't. I could work me with the clientele with this operation. I could work me. I
Hmm.
could feel me in the place, just a lift. And then they got a man in there called
I
the
remember his name might come back to you. But
anyway.
so what happened after they got this person in there?
He was a camp man, and that carried a lot when you say somebody was a camp person. He didn't believe in therapy for whatever. He wanted to tell them, you know, something really terrible is happening to you, going to happen to you, and make
So
oh no,
tough love approach. Was he effective with his approach?
No, not really. I don't
No.
think. I went away, went to the state, and then John Aguayas, who was one of my was a supervisor when I was there, he had MSW. Uh, and this man doesn't have an MSW. That's the other thing. That according to Short Doll Fund, whatever, my supervisor was supposed to be Short Doll. Had however they worked that and say that, but he had none of that. But he was directing MSWs without an MSW. That's how it was.
So how long did you work for the camp and how long did you work for the state?
18, I think it, when I started, they said I had 18 and three-quarter years.
Okay, so you did a good time with them, and
I became an airman first class, and then they changed it to airman second class again, and that's what I retired with.
so let me ask you.
I said airman, didn't I?
Mhm.
I said airman, DPO, the DPO too. Yeah, that's what.
CO2.
Yeah.
So, Ephraim, as you think about manhood and responsibility and values, what did being a man mean to you at different stages of your own growth? Talk to me about what being a man means to you. And how has that changed over time?
Wow. I'm a man. One of the things I did, my dad, I wanted to be a man. I wanted to be his little man. I wanted to be what he looked at as a good man, a perfect man, or I wanted to please him. I wanted to please my dad in my manhood. And one of the things he would do when I come in the house, snotty nose, crying, he'd say to me, "Men don't cry." And that's what he would say to me, "Men don't cry." And I tried to turn off all of those feelings that made me feel like crying. I did that and thought I was doing myself a favor. And it was a long time before I realized that you want to feel that, you want to feel it, but they don't want to turn it off.
When did you get to that point where you realize that, hey, it's okay to have those feelings and to express emotions and to cry if you want to cry? Like, at what stage of your life did you come to that realization?
I don't think I did that until I was retired. I don't think I did that, yeah, and may not have completed it yet, you know what I mean?
Wow. So that must have been a challenging journey to suppress the need to like express emotions like that. How do you think that affected your relationships? I mean, I heard you mention a son. Do you have just one son?
Now, I have two.
You have two sons. Are they same mother?
Are they what? Same mother?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And that's your wife that you were married to, right?
Right.
How has your toughness, your resistance to expressing emotion and crying, how did that affect your relationship with your family? I mean, both your spouse and your children.
I don't know. It was related. Barbara and I, we did a lot of stuff quickly, like buying a house and doing this and doing that. We put that together really quickly. The thing that ended, I think, my relationship with Barbara was a lot to do with when I left that church where I had been a deacon. And I don't know. I excelled. My mother was a deaconess. Lovey liked the church. It was
And Lovey was your sister, right?
right, right. Things were, I don't know, just shaky for me and things. I always, I always thought I was the boss in the house. I always thought that. And for the most part, Barbara allowed that. But what I didn't know was a probation officer's wife. And I thought I had it where I could get it, but it's in there somewhere. But Yeah, Barbara made the Times. Front page of that section. The
Mm.
probation's wife. This is officer's wife. Yes, sir. Yeah, my life is, uh, I don't know. It's good. It's good. Hmm.
So let me ask you then, because I'm sure that that would have been like a big surprise to you. But back to this question of manhood, because you say you thought that you were in charge, and I'm not sure exactly what that means. With that experience and your awareness of how you operated, and you have had time to reflect now, how do you describe what being a man is all about?
That's a big thing. One of the things that I think gives a satisfaction is when whomever the female is that I'm related to, treats me like a man, like, makes me feel manly, is satisfied with my manliness, shows me that kind of respect, that kind of good feeling, or whatever it is.
So, yeah, I guess maybe I want
That's
you
a hard
to,
question, though, Sebastian. That's a really a difficult question
yeah,
because
and
it involves feelings. You
I'm
see,
gonna press you on this though, because I don't want to hear about the role that the woman might play in making you feel. I want you to dig deep to say, w- what's your perception of being a man? Because I'm hearing you say like somebody will prop you up to make you feel manly, like the women that you deal with. But what about for you?
I didn't say it propped me up.
No,
I,
I use the expression. You say they treat you like a man and it make you feel. But suppose they weren't there to treat you a certain way. What would manliness be for you? Like, if you didn't have these women to treat you good, you'd still have to have a perception of what being a man is. So what would that perception be?
I think it's not being a man that takes a lot of the big spots. It's being a person, and male or female, just being.
Right. But you are a man, right? You're a black man. Like you're a man that have traveled the journey from Mississippi to Tennessee to Kansas to California. You are on a journey, not as a person, but as a black man. You were like a black man serving in the military. You were this black man that went to the bowling alley that they didn't want to rent the shoe to. It was like a person. It was you, this black man. So what for you? And this might be because we've been kind of at this for a minute. I'm gonna maybe like give you a break. So we can pick this up at another time because like just give you some time to relax. And but when we do this again, I want you to just come back with a thought, because I want you to provide instruction in terms of your story to young men coming behind who might have a perception that being a man might mean how well they get treated by others. And can you still be a man even if others do not treat you well? And what does that do for your ego? Welcome again, Ephraim, like we're picking up where we left off. And so the question that I want to start with is, what are some of the biggest changes you have witnessed over your lifetime? Thinking back from the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, 90s, to today, whether it be race or the economy, wherever you want to talk about this.
There's certainly been some good changes in my life. I started out following my dad. That's all I wanted to do was work. I started working with setting little duck pins in bowling alley. and earning. And I kept a little job on the side of some way to earn some money. My dad never paid a chauffeur or down on Beale Street or wherever we were living in Memphis. He never. I paid my way because I always had a little job. I had something that put some money in my pocket.
Mm.
We moved from Germantown, Tennessee. Dad was a sharecropper and he was making corn liquor. We moved from there, Germantown, Tennessee, and he was a sharecropper, into Memphis, Tennessee. And there he started working at Colonia Bakery. And he worked on a night crew, cleanup. I got started in school in Memphis, Corns Elementary School, right across the street from Dixie Homes. That Memphis had Dixie Homes and Lamar Garden. These were the colored folks, nice places. Dixie Home was brick units and double upstairs, I should say. Some of the units, whatever, directly across the street from the school. One of the things, I used to adventure out in Memphis alone. I just sometimes after school, I had a girl that I liked, and I followed her to a different direction from my going home. But I adventured Memphis. I walked different places. I walked from home to Bill Street. Not just me, others did it. One of the things that bothered me for a long time and still occasionally comes up, a friend across the street from me, Robert Wheeler, about 3 or 4 years older than me, but he had a lot of toys, and I ventured over and we played some nights, evenings, whatever. But we went swimming on a Saturday, and we in a river, Wolf River in Memphis. We went swimming, came home. The next day, another Robert down the street, and the three of us were going to go to a movie on Bill Street. But we told him about the swim, and he wanted to go to the river. So we decided to go. We swam, had a nice time, got out. But like Robert, the other Robert, not Robert Wheeler, the other Robert, he went back in the water after we had dressed and was sitting in there laughing and looking at us, whatever. This was Robert. Robert, he was a performer. And he kept going down and coming up, coming down, and then he didn't come up. We realized that Robert wasn't going to come back. So we had to go tell. And that was a big thing in my life. And after we had brought families and all the people and the preacher and whatever and all out to the river, on the way home, they were asking me how could we do this and that and what. And I was explaining, and one guy said in the car, "There's no sense in you saying that because you're going to get a whipping when you get home." That didn't feel good either. But that was Robert drowned from there. And that's something that in my life that I have remembered and occasionally go back there and shake my head about Robert. Robert, that's too much.
So Ephraim, let me ask you this question. When you moved out to California with your family, like, have you ever harbored thought of going back to Tennessee or going back to KC? And if yes, why? If no, why not?
When I came to California, that was in '58. I was a student at the University of Kansas. I was going back for my junior year. I had done my freshman and sophomore year, and I was going to go back for my junior year. The year before, about 4 or 5 of us went to Minneapolis, and the train, passenger train, put on extra help during the summer, and they liked students because it fit. We go back to school in September, and they decreased their employment, the extra help anyway, at that time during the summer's over.
Right.
The summer before we went to Minneapolis, The next summer, for some reason, we decided to go to California to do the same thing, to put a, work on the railroad as waiters. When I got to California, Lovey and Bizer he was a friend of mine, had broken up, and my mother was in California.
And
Lovey was
Lovey is your sister, right?
right, right, just passed away last month.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, my mother was out. Lovey was breaking up with Bison. And when I got ready to leave California and go back to school, my mother said to me, "Your sister is pregnant." She was a county worker. Um, she's not going to be able to work. She's not going to be able to do this. And she put it on me. And I swallowed it. I stayed. That was not my plan, but I stayed. And the first job I got was demolition. We went out where they had knocked down a house, a building, a stone, whatever, and loading that dust and whatever. My nose opened up in a way I had never in my life experienced that kind of sinus, kind of open and dry.
Mm-hmm.
I said, no more of this work, no more. I hung around in California for a while. I had a friend. His uncle had a cleaners on Western and before Slauson. Western before Slauson, going south. He had a cleaners on the corner there. Strout Laundry, whatever. I learned to press clothes and whatever, and I worked there for a while. And finally, I got a job at post office, and I became a carrier. I worked at the post office 6 years. We
Mm.
bought, in that time, Lovey and Mother and I, we bought a house on Carmona. That was a big move. We saved, we worked together, and we were also Christians at that time. Lovey died such, and so Mama, but not, I kind of wiggled away. We worked, and I used that when I went to UCLA. I talked about how the family and how we worked that together, and well, that and Dr. Adler over at Cal State. Dr. Adler said to me, he said, "Ephraim, I'm gonna write the best letter I ever written for a student. You go to UCLA, and I don't like social workers. I think they meddle in people's lives." He said, "But if you want to be a social worker, I would want to see you try to do that."
The impetus or encouragement for you.
Well, I came out of I got pissed off at the preacher at Mount Sinai, Reverend Charles in LA. I, I got pissed at him. He did some things that I saw as wasn't what I would toward me. He tried to get me more committed to him by helping me do something to buy a house, to put a little extra. And I got kind of annoyed with him, and I quit. And my intention was to preach. I was going to save the world.
Mm.
I said, not Baptist and not Methodist. I said, but I don't know really, but I'm going to get a degree. He said, you're going to need, he said, depending on which one you go to. I said, Presbyterian or something like that or whatever. He said, you know what you need to be able to be a minister in that? You know, he said, you need a PhD and you need something in religion, in theology or something. I don't know. He told me, he said, you got a rich wife? I said, He said, you're going to take 2 degrees for you to get where you think you want to be. That kind of knocked me out. That knocked me out of what I thought I wanted to do. That sounded like a lot of schooling, a lot more than I was thinking about. I had 2 kids. I got 2 boys. And another thing I want to say about the life, my dad had Lovey with Mother, a girl, the only girl in the Woods family since my dad and Lovey.
Wow. All boys after that?
I got 2. Ephraim Jr., Ephraim got about 5 boys. Travis my youngest, he has 2 boys. So that's what we got right now. No girls.
Wow. What about Lovey? Did she have children?
She did. She got a boy and a girl. Her
Let's talk a little about success and happiness and what kind of legacy. You're 92, done jobs from, working in the bakery. You say you did stuff at the bowling alley. You worked as a probation officer. Did you do anything else in social work after you got your MSW?
No, I went. No, my wife was a clerk typist in the probation department, and her her boss ran a. He took some MSWs and put them in the program out in the valley. Aftercare, they call it off aftercare. Okay,
Right.
and the kids coming out of camp and wherever and whatever would come out and be on your caseload. You know what I mean? You have them in the at home on probation. That's
So you did from you got your MSW, you did aftercare work with probation.
right in
Okay.
Van Nuys. Yeah, Joe was there also.
Okay. So like both
But
of
my
you.
wife got me the job
Oh,
because my wife got me the job in
oh,
probation. I didn't.
okay.
I didn't. He told her when he gets his MSW, ask him to call me, and I did, and he hired me. They didn't like it downtown. They, I started in as a DPO 3 level, and they didn't like that. But somehow he pushed it through, and I got hired. That's how I got into probation.
How long did you stay at probation? How long
The
did you work there?
18 years,
80.
18
Okay.
and 3/4.
Wow. After you left probation, I don't know if you retired from probation, but after you left probation, what did you do after that?
Nothing.
Okay, so you retired from probation,
I did do a little work for a while with a office
like
in the,
consulting,
huh?
like consulting. Did you do some consulting?
Something like that. And it was an office that took in some community people.
So let's talk about success and happiness and your legacy. Like, what do you consider success, and how has that definition changed over
One of the big
time?
successes in my life came from Donald Kitchen. Donald Kitchen was just another guy who was about 2, 3, I don't know, 2, 3 years ahead of me in high school, and just sitting out having a beer. He asked me questions and said things that made sense. When I came out of the Air Force, he said to me, "What, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm back at Armors. I got 2 years vacation, blah, 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 blah." He said, "Why don't you go to school?" I said, "Go to school? Where?" He said, "KU." I said, "There, you ain't gonna take me. My grades were I." He said, "They have to." Nobody had ever said that in that kind of language to me. They have to. I said, "What?" He said, "You a GI. They have to take you on probation." I never heard that word before in my life. Probation. Yeah. He said, "I'm there. I'm there." I hooked up, became a student at KU.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So, what
And something I
legacy?
want to mention here, I don't ever say to anybody, and that
Yeah.
is, I met Will Chamberlain at KU. I met Will Chamberlain at KU. We
Okay.
waved at one another on campus, you know what I mean, whatever we
Right.
were,
Right.
whatever. But he would come to Kansas City, and he would come down on Third Street where the little nightclub was, and there where I was, and there he is. He came up, touched me in the back, and I turned around, and when I turned around, what was I looking at? Knees, you know. That was a big shock in my life, and I tell that story, occasionally. But
Right.
Will Chamberlain shocked me, man, with that look. And
So
then,
so
yep,
so did you talk to him for a minute, or did he just
oh
did
yeah,
you just
oh yeah,
meet and he went his
we
way?
did. Alex and I, Alex, you know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
We biked every Friday, and we were down on the north end. And Wilt came up on an old regular looking bicycle, whatever, came over. We shook hands, talked a while, whatever. I can't remember whether I introduced Alex to Wilt or not, but I think I did. But anyway, that was the last time I met Wilt.
So when you think back over your life, what legacy would you want to leave behind?
That I like people. I like people. I, I can engage with folk. It, my lady, when we bike, she go to the toilet or wherever she come back, I'm talking to somebody. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's just me when it comes to people, and I don't know. I like folk. I like folk for the
Okay.
most part. For the most part, that's something I kind of give them a
Right.
nod. I give them a nod and then move on. Yeah.
So what advice would you offer to younger men um, on the topic of love, money, purpose, and taking care of themselves? So
What
let's
I
start with
say,
love.
that taking care of yourself is, to me, the
Mm-hmm.
most meaningful thing you can bump into.
Okay.
When you turn in here, you got the only instrument you can really understand, that you can really get to really know, that you
Mm.
can trust. That, it's here. Once you get, I say uno. Once you establish uno in your life, that's as far as it's going. When you get to two, you get into imagination. You know what I mean? Um,
Mm.
uno, and you chew on it, you swallow it, you let it take you wherever, because you're on good ground, in my opinion, when you stay with uno.
What would you say about money? Advise about money.
Get as much as you can. I say need, but not it can go beyond need, in America anyway. You got to have some, but don't love it. Don't love it. Don't let it possess you.
What about purpose? What kind of advice would you offer about purpose in life? I mean, have
Almost like
you
none.
discovered your purpose?
Almost like none. I was a freelander in a. I don't know what I mean by that. I always thought I never had a goals where I was going to get here and have this much or whatever. I played it kind of loose, and always thought that was a job. That was some kind of work for me, and it always was something. Major changes came in my life. Air Force. Air Force was a big thing in my life. When I went in the Air Force, it was my first engagement with white boys. I had one white kind of the last year or so at Armas. There was a white dude, about my age. We about came out of school about the same time, and he and I had lunch and whatever and talk and whatever. But that was the only function I had with white boys. When I got in the Air Force, every night there were guys sitting around my bunk, bringing their little letters, little letters from home, from the girlfriend or whatever, talking to me about I had that. And there were some guys in there who didn't like that. I was also the first squad leader. Um, I knew I was a good airman because I liked it. I just liked doing it, and I liked dressing, and it felt like something to do that I hadn't felt this proud of myself in ways that I felt it in the airport.
Mm. It gave you meaning. It add meaning to your life.
It showed me that I could do that. I was advanced over a lot of the white boys there who came in there acting like they were just white. You know what I mean? That's just what I said about them. They just act like they're white. That's all. And I advanced right away. Uh,
Mm.
First squad leader, and the little Texian who was who was the second. He had two stripes, corporal. He was our little leader. He wasn't the big man. The big man had three stripes, and he seldom came around The other guy marched us and did whatever and took us here and took us to chow and did whatever. But I began to know that I was advanced on the whiteboard. I played it the way the Air Force set it up. I mean, I did it just in the step and kept advancing. When I was 1 year in the Air Force, I had 2 stripes, one out of basic and one out of school. Top 10% in this class got a stripe. I got a second stripe. Before the first year in the Air Force, I had 2 stripes. Knew I was going to get 4 before 4 years. I didn't. Just made the third one. Just matter of fact, the tech sergeant who was in charge, Texian, told me he said, Ephraim, you're subject to a bust. You are subject to a bust. He didn't tell me why, whatever. I had 2 stripes. I had 2 stripes when I met him. And I still had 2 when he said this. Just about 3-4 months before I was to get out of the Air Force, they gave me a 3rd stripe. And I looked at him and I thought, damn, you just told me I was subject to a bus. You know what I mean? And here they gave me the 3rd stripe.
How success has come and what advice you'd offer to young men. And you're talking about purpose, and you said that the Air Force like gave you purpose. You talk about money. We talked about money. You said, don't be like loving it too much, but get as much as you need. You talked about self-care, how important that is. You mentioned you call it uno, like like taking care of el numero uno. If you could preserve one story, a blessing or a message, what would you say? If of all the things that you have experienced over your lifetime, if there's one that you could close with as your benediction, what would it be?
I got a lot of those. I got a lot of this. I got a lot of stuff written. My thoughts, you know what I mean? Whatever. I don't know. I don't like using the word love. I think it's just, for me, it's just too general, too big. Whatever. You got to believe in yourself. You got to believe in yourself, in my opinion. If you don't believe in yourself, you follow somebody else, and that ain't, following is. I think public education brands us to follow it, because it doesn't turn you into yourself. You go out looking for leaders, looking for somebody, a preacher, a politician, somebody to tell you what's going on, how to do whatever. You need something that tells you to go here. And if you don't go here, you're going to always be frustrated, I think, because you're going to be following somebody or trying to follow somebody or trying to interpret what somebody else is saying or your thing is. And the thing is, you got to look at it yourself, or else you really don't see it. And you may not even really see it when you look at it yourself. It depends. And I think no matter which way you go, it's going to end up where you came in. That you're going to get whatever is there. But I don't like saying this like this, but it really doesn't matter. I think sometimes when people are born and die within seconds, and people born and die within weeks, that it kind of tells you something, that this is, you have to say, I don't know. And I think that word is that's really important, to be able to say at times, I don't know. But when you catch a person who knows it all, when they always got that answer, always can tell you how far to go and where to go, I kind of close my eyes or something. I close something. It's a bit much.
I'm going to ask you a few, I'm calling them rapid fire questions. I ask you and, just respond. So, for example, a smell that takes you back.
A watermelon. Oh, man. Nice watermelon is a good smell for me.
Where does it take you back to?
When I used to sit in Memphis, Watermelon Man, and during the summer, they would have trucks out there on the street. It's a market that's over here. But trucks on the street To get a cold watermelon, man, sweet. That's a treat. That's a treat. You can't. And I used to do it and have the juice running down my belly. You know what I mean? I wouldn't have no shirt on or anything or whatever when I was a kid. Eat those cold watermelon.
Wow.
Nina Simone. Nina Simone.
Young, Gifted, and Black.
Something like that. Something like that. She was kind of late for me. She was kind of late for me, but really powerful when she hit. When she came in, I didn't listen to anybody but her for a while. You know what I mean? She just captivated me and make it just.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you could feel it in the music. You could feel it in the song. Oh yeah.
A time that you changed your mind.
Well, when I changed my mind, when I came out of the service and got my job back for the packing house with 2 weeks vacation, and Donald Kitchen said to me about going to school and how much they had to pay, they would pay me as a GI Bill and whatever, I changed my mind about working in the packing house and being there. Matter of fact, I worked in a lard refinery, which was one of the best, warmest places to work, and women, the big thing over in the lard refinery. Yes, I walked away from that and I changed my mind. I went to school rather than
right.
Yeah.
A mentor you still hear in your head.
A mentor?
Yeah, that you still hear in your head.
Alex, Joe. I like talking to those guys. And I've had some deep conversations. I mean, you know, I still do. Yeah. I appreciate Alex he introduced me to Dr. Ben. You know, you heard that name before? Dr. Ben?
No, who's
African. But Dr. Ben went in the cave and saw where Christianity came from. Okay. He introduced me to, you know, Dr. Ben and some others that rattled my head, you know what I mean? Knocked my stuff around in my head that I thought was standing up with Uno, you know, it wasn't there.
Did you meet Alex at UCLA? I mean, yeah, Alex at UCLA.
He was a professor when I went through there. And then Joe introduced him to me when I started biking on Fridays. Joe told Alex, say, Ephraim was a biker man out there, whatever. And Alex came out and joined me, and we biked ever since. And it developed into about 5, 6, 7 people. You know what I mean? Right.
A regret you have made peace with. The last question I'm going to ask you, Ephraim, is a photo you wish everyone could see.
A what?
A photo, a picture you wish everyone could see.
A still picture?
Yeah. You know, just any photo, whether it's one you have, one you took, one you have seen, that you wish everybody could see it. And then why?
Well, I'm supposed to get it since my sister passed. She had a photo of Big Daddy. That's our grandfather, my father's father. Big Daddy was a legendary black man in Mississippi, in Germantown, Olive Branch, Mississippi, and Miller, Mississippi. Grandpa, my dad praised that dad, his dad. He thought he called him a sport. He called his dad a sport. He was a sport. He wore 6 silk shirts. He had fancy horse, fancy buggy. Big Daddy hustled early. He picked up cotton pickers or whatever and took them to the plantation and whatever and spread them around. Then he picked them up and took them out back, you know, wherever. He started that kind of business and whatever. He had, I'm gonna tell you this. He had about 4 boys and different ladies. He picked them all up. My dad was Fox, Frog, Coon. He picked those on the farm. They worked the farm. My dad was a cook. I don't know why I got off on that, but
no, like you're talking about Big Daddy and the picture.
Felicia, love his daughter, my niece. She has it, but she's dealing some little games with it right now, and so I might have to tell her to keep it. You know what I mean? But I'd like to have the picture. He's a handsome man. He's a brown-eyed, handsome man.
Thank you, once again immensely, Ephraim, for sharing. So, is there any final word you want to say before we close out? Anything? I mean, just think back to all the conversations we've had from the very beginning. Anything that you want to have as a final word?
No, no, I can't think of anything to put together, but I want to say something. I, I, I have a lot to say, and
Mm-hmm.
that's why I can't figure out what to say. That's what I think, anyway. I have a lot to say. I
Okay.
I spent a lot of time wondering and thinking this way and this way. Matter of fact, I have written down a number down that thinking is not going to solve our human problems. Human problems cannot be solved thinking. You have to, I think, we have to just give in to the way it feels good to do it. Just, but not by thinking you figured you know the way to go. And yet, with the way the political thing going, you got to, you know, get in that. But we can't solve human problems just by thinking. By thinking, we got to put thinking aside somewhere along the way. But you can't get there without some thinking. But you got to put it aside and realize that it's ain't nothing to gain, but to wrap your arms around them, hug the other one, to accept the other me, as me. Don't understand him, but he's definitely me, just different.
Mm. Accept accepting people as they are, like seeing them like you see yourself and recognizing their differences.
Said well, said well. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, man. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. I'm glad we're able to do this, and so,
Okay, Sylvester, good. Hey,
so that,
man.
that, that
And,
worked out
and,
well.
and, and good luck with your project. Good luck
Yeah,
with your project.